Solo travel ruined my life, but not in the way that you would expect. It ruined my ability to stay in a cubicle and pretend that I'm happy. It ruined my belief that success means following the rules. It ruined my worldview that playing it safe leads to a good life. Because once you see the world on your own, when you realize that your culture is not the default and strangers become your best friends, there is no coming back. In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how solo travel broke me and rebuilt me into someone I never thought I could be. Let's go. In the first week of my solo trip in Taiwan, I felt completely lost, but it wasn't because I missed home. I was alone in the big city of Taipei. I didn't know anyone and no one knew me. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. I had the time and space to ask what I wanted from myself. And that's why solo travel is so different from traveling in a group. I didn't have to follow an itinerary I make with my friends. I had complete freedom with my time. So I'm not gonna lie, the very first day alone, I stayed in the hostel by myself the whole day. And it was at this moment I knew that my whole life up until this point was pretend. I had been living for the expectations of other people. And none of my goals, beliefs, or hobbies were my own. You see, the beauty of solo travel is you're able to be in a place by yourself where you have zero context. And this tells you exactly who you are. And because I had no direction and no idea of how I wanted to spend my time, that told me that I didn't know myself at all. Back home, my schedule was always packed. Rushing to work, rushing to the gym, and meeting my friends, I felt like I had no time. But being completely alone in Taipei, I had zero idea. So I started trying things that I never tried before. And I'm not talking about going sightseeing and taking photos in front of famous places. I'm talking about trying new hobbies and new things that I was too afraid to admit I was interested in. One of those things for me is Muay Thai. I didn't even know that this was a big priority for myself prior to my solo travel. Another thing was the idea of who I like to hang out with. Back home, I was taught to hang out with other white-collar workers who were upstanding citizens in society. But after traveling, I was drawn more to authentic people. When I talk to people, if I could hear that there's truth in their voice, if they really are passionate about the things they talk about, then these are the types of people that I want to surround myself with, even if on paper, they're kind of quirky or weird. Being alone on the road, I have full autonomy to choose who I meet up with and who I don't. Another big one for me was my idea of an ideal life. Growing up in the US, I was taught to really want that dream 9-to-5 job where I earn a high salary. But after traveling, I learned that this isn't the end-all be-all. And actually, I wanted a life of adventure. Travel didn't ruin my life. It ruined the illusion that the life I was living was mine. On a solo trip in Bangkok one morning, I saw a woman who owned a noodle cart, and she had the biggest smile on her face, selling a bowl of noodles for 30 baht a piece. 30 baht. That's less than $1. It was at this point that I knew that everything I was taught couldn't be true. You see, in America, we're taught to hustle. We're taught to chase the next promotion, that sports car, a mansion. But I didn't know a single person around me who was genuinely happy. Even the high-level execs at my office job, who we were taught to idolize, I didn't want a single thing that they had because I could see it on their face that they were miserable, but they were lying to themselves and everyone else that they were happy. But this lady with the noodle cart, she had a real smile. I could tell that she was actually happy. So then I learned that everything I knew wasn't universal, it was actually local. For an American, working 40+ hours a week with a 2-week vacation is what success looks like. But in Europe, some countries take an entire month off for Easter holidays or Christmas. And you can argue that, oh, this is why those countries have lower GDPs. That's what a lot of my American friends say. But also you gotta realize it's just a different way they look at life. It's a very American thing to do to obsess over work and feel guilty about not working on a weekday. But some of the French travelers I met, they could lay in a hammock all day reading poetry and feel zero guilt and indulge in the full pleasure of the moment. In America, if we're late 15 minutes, we feel bad. But my Spanish friends taught me that living life with a little bit of feeling is okay. If they're late for an appointment because they wanted to stop by and see the sunset, they don't feel guilty about that at all. You see, most education systems and what we're taught is right and wrong isn't universal. But when I visited other places by myself and interacted with the locals and other travelers, I was able to absorb their worldviews, what they see as right and wrong, and what they see as desirable and what's not. And it's a really cool thing to be able to compare and contrast my beliefs versus theirs. And I come to realize that most of the things that I cared about back home in the States are not even worth caring about. I'll give an example. I used to think that clinical depression was a real thing. I was diagnosed with antidepressants at one point. But after interacting and being friends with Muay Thai trainers who make less than $20 a day, and what they like to do is indulge in a beer after training, and that's what makes them happy, grateful, and content, I understood that depression is actually just perception. If you perceive your life as lacking something, of course you'll be depressed. But this is the exact culture of America. We're taught that we're nothing without that new material, or we're nothing without that big social media following. But those happy Muay Thai trainers, they view the world from what they have. So if they have a beer at the end of the day, that's a good day. They're content and happy. So after absorbing this new perspective, I was able to essentially cure my clinical depression. Another example is this. In America, we're obsessed with American football. We talk for hours at the office and our friends about the NFL draft, about fantasy football leagues, and who's playing at the Super Bowl. And to be honest, inside, I never cared about American football. I actually thought it was a bit stupid. The whole country obsesses over watching a bunch of guys throw a ball to another guy, and their goal is to run that ball across the line. It didn't make much sense to me. After interacting with people from outside America, they don't care about American football at all. So I realized that all that time that I wasted pretending like I cared just to fit in was a waste of time. Because frankly, I'd rather watch hours of guys beating each other up in a Muay Thai ring than watch guys run across a line with the ball. That's just me. Nothing against American football if that's something you enjoy. Another thing is politics. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but politics are very local. In America, we're taught to demonize certain figures in history or certain political leaders right now. But if you travel to different places of the world and meet people from those places, it's actually the opposite. And if you listen to the history that they were taught, you understand that every country has a different version of history to fit their own needs. Most of what I used to be stressed about isn't even real. After some of my solo travels, I tried living the traditional life again. I lasted about 2 weeks before I started to go crazy. I still remember it. I walked into the office after my first big backpacking trip. It was at a very reputable company in the US. It was basically the 9-to-5 American dream. But after traveling, sitting down in that cubicle was like hell. I knew I was earning a good paycheck. I knew I was on the path to being successful, but I was just so miserable. And it's not because I missed beautiful backdrops like this. No, that's not it. The environment was one factor. But what was actually eating me alive was knowing that I was settling on myself. In my travels, I met people living all kinds of lives. I met pro fighters who make a living from fighting. I met digital nomads for the first time who fully work online and make money. I met backpackers from France who take 3 months off the year to enjoy traveling. And I knew that this office job that I had was only successful in the subset of middle-class America. Outside of that, a lot of people would never want to live this life, no matter how successful it looks on paper. And because I knew that other people can make a living online and be masters of their own time and schedule, I knew that I could never sit in this box and listen to orders from other people, working on spreadsheets that I don't care about, building PowerPoint decks that lead to nothing, all so I can make a lot of salary and enjoy it just for 2 weeks out of the year. Knowing that I was boxing myself into this tiny little space. And that's the feeling of shrinking, of settling. And once I knew that these other lives were possible, I couldn't just close my eyes and be okay living that 9-to-5 office life. I knew I had to change something. And I've seen people handle this in one of two ways. The first one is they say, okay, back to reality, and they settle for that same life again. And all the insights and revelations they had in their travels, they view of as fantasy. But I've seen other people who take these insights, and when they go back home, they make the necessary adjustments to drastically change their life. So when I went back, I hustled hard outside of work to learn how to make money online. Fast forward 10 years, and now I'm making a living fully online. I own my own schedule, so I can work and not work whenever I want to. I'm able to live and work from anywhere that I want. So travel really broke me down. It ruined everything I knew about myself and the world, but instead it gave me a bigger gift. It gave me the freedom and space to forge a new identity for myself and become who I am today. And I know that I couldn't have done this had I stayed in the comfort of my home city. So I want to hear how solo travel affected you. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't tried solo travel yet, I highly recommend it, and I hope it could shape your life like it shaped mine. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more future content like this. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you learned something from this.